Ryan here with Prudential Pest Solutions, and our client in Reading, Pennsylvania, which is in Berks County in southeastern Pennsylvania, was having some yellow jackets come in the upper part of their home, and what I believe one of their kids said is they could hear scratching above their bedroom ceiling. So here are going up into their attic, and I gotta say, for attic access, this is just great. I mean, stairs, plank flooring, I mean, this is just wonderful for a treatment to get access to. But what we're going to find is that there was an HVAC line that was coming from the outside of the house, from the condenser unit, all the way up into the attic space, and there was just a small gap on the between where the line comes into the house. And when we get closer to where the nest is, you'll see the daylight coming through. But that's where the yellow jackets were coming in from, and they had created their nest underneath the insulation, which is why the kid whose bedroom's down below this was hearing scratching and activity. So as I get close here, we can see that big black line that's coming out right kind of where I'm shining this flashlight right now. That's that air conditioner line coming in. And what looks like brown around that is the actual nesting material, because what the yellow jackets will do is once they get access into the attic space through that line between that line and the house, is that they'll make like nesting material that goes all the way down into their nest. So it's kind of like a protected tunnel, or channel maybe is a better word for it, that goes all the way into their nest. So what I'm going to do is we're going to remove some of this insulation. Obviously, I'm wearing my bee suit. We're going to remove some of this insulation, and we're going to treat and remove this yellow jacket nest. Now, as nice as it was to have all that plank flooring there, as we get closer to the nest here, you can see the fiberglass insulation, which is the pink stuff, and then there's just the ceiling joist below. So you got to make sure you're not, I'm not stepping on the insulation or anything like that. Otherwise, that would be a quick way to have to call a drywall repair guy to come in and replace that. So there's the nest. It's kind of tough to see, but you can see all the yellow jackets in there. And I'm using my PTPI, which is my favorite aerosol to use for yellow jacket nests like this, because number one, it worked extremely quickly. And when you're this close to a nest, even though I have my whole bee suit on, whatever you use, you need to make sure that it works very quickly. And the other thing that it does is it permeates all the little nooks and crannies down there, so that any yellow jackets that are below that upper level are going to be killed as well. And we can see how devastatingly effective this PTPI aerosol really is. You can see they're just dropping, falling out. So what the general idea of the treatment here, what my general plan of attack is to obviously gain access to the nest, treat it directly, remove the nest, apply a long-term residual dust to that area, and then I'm going to seal the area on the inside where that air conditioner line's coming through. Usually I'll seal that from the outside, but in this particular house, where this air conditioner line was coming up from was very high off the ground. I mean, at least 3 stories. That's where we're in right now. We're in the attic, which is 3 stories up. And the pitch of the roof and just the way the land was, I wasn't able to safely get a ladder up to it. So we're just going to seal it from the inside, which is going to do just fine. And then that way nothing new can come through there. So you can see I removed a pretty big section of nest. And then I'm going to take my applicator and I'm just going to keep applying that PTPI just to make sure that we hit every nook and cranny. Because when I leave this job, I don't want any live yellow jackets in the house at all. Or in the attic space, I should say. So that right there you can kind of see, well, even you can kind of see on the insulation there at like the 11 o'clock, you can see that bright spot of daylight coming through there. And that's what the yellow jackets were using to get access into the attic space. And there's another shot. You can see where that daylight is. So it was a pretty good size hole. Nothing that the HVAC guys did wrong. It's just, naturally there's just a hole there that they have to cut to put that line through. And, who would think to, besides us, obviously, who would think to have to seal that up? They thought, hey, it's 3 stories up. The pipe's through, who cares? And really what we're going to do is just seal that up so that insects like yellow jackets, other bees and wasps can't get through there again. So now I'm just scraping off that paper nesting material. And if you're interested on how the yellow jackets actually make that nesting material on the nest itself, we have a video that I'll have a link to at the end that shows how hornets make their nests, but it's the same process where they chew at wood, usually on a fence or a deck or something like that, and they grind up the wood. They make like a pulp, and then that's how they make their nest. So it's pretty interesting how they do that. Well, I think it's pretty interesting how they do that. So now I'm applying that dust. So it kind of looks like smoke, but it's an insecticidal dust. And what that does is it leaves us with a long-term residual. We don't have to worry about humans or pets or anything like that coming in contact with it because I'm applying it directly down into that void, and then I'm going to cover it up with that insulation again. And you can see there that I'm standing on the joist. I'm not standing on the insulation. Otherwise, that's a very quick way to get down and break through the ceiling. So what I'm prepping now for is I'm going to get my sealant gun, and what I use is it's called Perfoam. It's black. It's like that yellow-orange expansion foam you find at the hardware store, except that number one, it's black in color. It seals, I think, a little firmer. It doesn't expand as much, and I have way more control because it's coming out of my sealant gun here. So you can see I'm able to just kind of apply the sealant all the way around. I just want to get a good tight sealant. And because we're in the attic here, it doesn't have to be the most beautiful looking sealant in the world. However, I'm a bit of a foam smith, if you will, a sealant smith, and I like to make it look as nice as possible. So we got all that sealed up. You can see on some of that batted insulation that there's still some paper from the nest. You see that right on top there. So I'm just going to kind of pick some of that off. It's not hurting the insulation, and it's not actually part of the nest itself. It's more just the outer covering, so we don't have to. I think that I would cause more damage to the insulation by trying to really rip and paw at it. So, I'm just going to kind of put it back in there, make sure everything's good and flush. We'll put that other piece of insulation back in. And then what I'm going to do is, because on this house, they had gable vents and lights in there. So I just want to make sure before everything's said and done that we have, that I check all those areas. Number one, to make sure that there's no live yellow jackets, because what yellow jackets tend to do when they're in a structure, in a void, in an attic like this, is when the nest is exposed, they're going to try to go to the first light source they find. So a lot of times that's me, right, with my flashlight, my headlamp, my camera, because they think that's a way out. They definitely don't want to be in there any more than you want them in there. But with the gable vents and some of these other ventilation and the lights in there, I just want to check that before I say everything's good and done, because I want to make sure that when I leave that there's no live yellow jackets in this attic space. So that's what we're going to do now. I'm just kind of getting all my equipment cleaned up and packed up, checking the area, making sure we don't have anything in there. And then we're going to just take a brief inspection throughout just to make sure that we have all the openings, because what you don't want is we don't want to seal everything up, remove the nest, and find out that number one, either there's another nest nearby or that yellow jackets are able to come in through another area. Because you have to imagine on the outside of the house right here, there's still yellow jackets kind of hovering around, because these were the yellow jackets that were already out of the nest. They were sent out to find resources for the colony. And what's happening is they're coming back and they're saying like, whoa, where's my home at? Like the front door is now locked and my house is gone. So they're kind of hovering around. They're going to try to find a different way in. So I just want to make sure that they can't get back in there. And then I don't show it in the video here, but what I'm going to do on the outside is just do a pretty brief spray on the outside with a liquid insecticide into that upper area of the attic, just to get the flyers that are up there, the stragglers, just to make sure we have them all treated and taken care of. So like I said, when we're all finished with a treatment like this, the nest is dead, it's removed, we've eliminated any access back into the house, and then we're going to make sure that they have no new access, and we're going to kill off the stragglers. So it's way more in-depth than just, spraying and praying, so to speak. We're just making sure that everything's out of there. You can see that there's overhead lights in the attic, so if there are any live yellow jackets, they're either going to go towards those gable vents, they're going to go towards my flashlight, or they're going to go up towards the actual lights of the inside the attic space. So we're just going to double check before we leave, and then we'll call it good. So this client was in Reading, Pennsylvania, which again is in Berks County in southeastern Pennsylvania. And Prudential Pest Solutions are the yellow jacket, hornet, bee, wasp experts. So if you have a yellow jacket issue, it's time to call the professionals. You can call or text us at 484-401-4361.